Joining me now to break down what we might hear, former Congressional Budget Office Director Douglas Holtz-Eakin. Doug, great to see you. Your thoughts on what's happening here. Blake says, we haven't seen meetings like this in quite some time.
Well, it's actually pretty conventional for the president to assemble the financial regulators early in his term and sort of lay out the agenda. I expect that they will, in fact, talk a lot about disclosures at the SEC on so-called ESG, climate-related disclosures. They're doing rulemaking on that now. It's going to be a controversial area, and they'll go through that. I think there's a very good chance that, given the opportunity to have Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen in the room, the president might ask about inflation and all he's heard about it in recent weeks, and what do they really think about the outlook, and get a quick briefing on that. And then certainly they have been not shy about their desire to use the regulatory powers across the government, not just in finance, to pursue a fairness agenda in access to credit and the locations of houses and a whole variety of issues. And I'm sure they'll talk about that as well.
And something on everybody's mind has been, what we saw, the sort of GameStop stock frenzy, right? The meme stocks that we've been watching. Robinhood's role in trading and making trading as accessible as using an app on every person's smartphone. Your thoughts on what they might talk about with respect to that specifically? Do you think they make it harder or for people to, normal people to access the markets?
I think they have a problem with that. I mean, it's hard for them to say we don't want real people, retail investors, to be able to purchase stocks. And it's the 21st century, and a lot of that's going to be done on app-based applications. And, we're seeing a revolution in fintech in general that they're not going to turn that tide back. I think the real issue is looking forward in those areas and talking about what gaps in the regulatory structure they might see for fintech applications. I don't see a lot there, but they may see it differently, and I'm sure it'll come up. It may very well go on to digital currencies and other things that have been volatile investment vehicles recently. So that's a good guess at the kind of thing that might come up.
Let's talk about inflation for just 1 second, because I find it so interesting, the juxtaposition, if you will, that you've got Janet Yellen, former Fed chair, within the administration as the Treasury Secretary, and you have Jay Powell coming in, current Fed chair, having to deal with policy. Remember, the Fed is separate from the administration. It's supposed to act independently. What do you think the conversation is going to be today when they start talking about inflation?
Well, I certainly don't think they will pressure the Fed in any way. Administrations are far too careful on that front. But there might be some tough questions asked. Where is the inflation coming from? How long do you think it's going to last? What's your best guess as to how high it might get? And those are hard questions to answer, but the president's entitled to know. And I do hope the conversation on both inflation and the volatility in meme stocks and retail investing that we've seen does go back to the American Rescue Plan, the $2 trillion that in the end was the source of this volatility and stimulus in financial markets, the source of the inflation in goods and services markets, and have an honest conversation with the president about where they stand with that, because you have to level with the president. It's a mistake to try to sugarcoat it and not tell him the truth about the lay of the land. They did something that was too big. We're dealing with the consequences of it, and he should know that.
Well, we're not only looking in the rearview mirror at that plan, we're looking at spending plans in the future as well. And I think that's why the stock market is reacting, because it's looking and saying, if you're going to use budget reconciliation to pass and push all this stuff through, all of this spending, then that inflation is here to stay. And Janet Yellen, you're part of this administration. How could you not be saying something to the president? I mean, Jerome Powell basically told us we're going to have to adjust and be nimble to deal with the inflation problem.
There is no question the Fed has had to move quicker than it thought it would, and it will have to be more aggressive than it would like to, I think, in many ways. And it should affect their thinking about the passage of the American Jobs Plan, American Family Plan, whatever's going to happen in reconciliation. The biggest mistake would be to once again front-load that with a lot of big government spending financed by borrowing. That would repeat the American Rescue Plan problem. That would exacerbate the problems they have with inflation and financial volatility.
Yeah.
If they're going to go forward with that kind of a plan, they better push the spending to the out years and make sure that the upfront makes fiscal sense.
They better. We're not sure if they are. We'll be watching. Thank you so much for that, Doug. Great to see you.